Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm trying headphones for the first time. So I'm just going to wait for some people to join us. Hey, Jenny, how are you? Good to see you. And Sophia, lovely to have you joining us as well. And my friend Carla, all the way from Canada. So excited to have you online with us this morning. This is just one of the great privileges and pleasures of this incredible technology, is that you can actually connect with people that you haven't seen for years and just know that they're listening. So I am very excited that I joined this morning by the beautiful Jules, who is just coming online now, I believe, through the wonders of... There she is. Hi.
Hey, hi, Linda. Lovely to meet you and talk
And
to you.
This is one of the other exciting things, is that Jules and I have communicated numerous times via
Yes,
email and a little bit on text, but we've never actually seen each other in real life.
this is right. Exactly. So it's so lovely.
It's so great to meet you. Now, we do have a beautiful mutual friend, so I
We
think
do.
anyone who is a friend of Sue Murphy's is automatically an exceptional
Absolutely.
human. Well, I'll extend that to you. I'm not going to presume that
Thank
of
you.
myself. But
No, no, Sue
I,
is beautiful.
she is. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. And thank you particularly for sharing such vulnerability and bravery, your story of going through deep loss and disappointment and grief and lots of emotions
Yeah.
over the end of your first marriage would be
Mm.
quite a few years ago now,
It is
16.
actually. It is
Yeah,
16 years now. So amazingly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just anyway, I won't do a spoiler alert on what you just celebrated last weekend, but
That's right.
um, but Jules very graciously shared an incredible story about her journey through the loss of her first marriage and that journey of forgiveness. And walking towards wholeness in her relationship with her ex-husband and the father of her two boys.
Mm.
And that story is in volume 2 of the She Is Project. So if you don't have that, I strongly encourage you to get a copy because it's a fantastic story. But she also writes on a blog called Jules and Pearls, and that's Jules, Jewels, and
That's
pearls.org, all one word.
it.
And you've got some fantastic writing there about not just the things involved in navigating life after marriage, but also single parenting and co-parenting and learning to trust again, and then blended family along the way.
Yes,
So
well, that's it, and there's a lot more to write there. Actually, yes, that's
I
to
can
come. I
imagine.
think got plenty of material, but I need to start writing it. So
Well, and that's often the case, isn't it? Is that we have a lot of things happen and then we need some time to just let it sit.
that's
Um,
it.
so we can process and then know exactly the words we want to put around that. So I do
Yeah,
appreciate how much it costs for each person that shares their story with us to actually go through the experience and then sit with that experience long enough to know what it is that they want to
yeah.
communicate after that. So thank you for being one of those
Oh,
people.
pleasure, pleasure. So
and
yeah,
and so I encourage people to check out that blog. I wanted to say it at the beginning in case I forgot at the end.
that's
So,
okay. No, that thank you. That's all good. And look, as I said, I actually haven't written on the blog for a little while. I wrote my story, a few years ago. I really felt to write that, and as you said, I've kind of just been resting in between, but I'm feeling that stirring again to start writing about second marriage, blended families. But it's a process, and yes, but hopefully what's on there may encourage people that are going through similar circumstances. So
yeah, and that's the reality. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to not just have your story in print, but actually have a chat with you is that for so many of us, the breakdown of a marriage, if it doesn't
mm,
affect us directly, it affects people in our family and our friendship
yeah,
circle. It's something that has become very much a part of the landscape of life, and
yeah,
it brings with it a whole new range of challenges, both personally and with family relationships.
mm,
Now, the end of your marriage came as an unexpected series of events for you. And, I love the title of your story is Divorce Was Never Meant to Be My Story.
That's it.
Which I think sums it up. So you had to deal with something that you had really very little notice that was coming, and then was not really in alignment with the expectations that you had for your relationship or your life. How did you process that, the shock, and then on an ongoing basis, the grief, the disappointment,
Yeah.
the anger? What do you do with
Yeah.
all of those emotions and
Yes.
pain?
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, look, for me, just that little backstory that yes, I had gone into marriage with high expectations. I'm a hopeless romantic and idealist, and I had grown up in church, loving God. I was waiting for the right one. My view of marriage that it would be blessed, we'd be serving God together, and it would just be this amazing life. And because I'd done ... to get to that place, and so obviously it was a massive learning curve. And when things started, you know, even though it did come as a shock and it was sudden at the end, there were definitely signs along the way. And after the birth of our second child, I could definitely tell there was something that was wrong, and there was a disconnect. But you put it down to, are we just sleep deprived? Is it just, the stresses of life and things? But as time went on, in my heart, I began to sense something was deeply wrong. And even though I tried to talk to my husband at the time, he would assure me, no, nothing's wrong. It's, I'm just stressed or this and that. But, I began to sense in my spirit something was really wrong. And leading up to just a few weeks before that all happened, I just had a sense of God just kind of preparing me. And yet I couldn't even comprehend it, to be honest. I'm like, this cannot happen to me. This is not my life, God. This is not what you've got for me. Marriage is everything. I honor marriage. I see it as sacred and holy, and I just could not imagine that my marriage would end. So when everything happened and I found a text, my husband had been having an affair, things happened very quickly. And but look, it was amazing having, I think, that relationship with God. As devastating as it was, going through that, it wasn't debilitating, in the sense that I felt like God had prepared me that few weeks before. And when it was unfolding, I honestly just felt so blanketed in God's peace. So even though, of course, there's real raw human emotion, through that all, though, was just this peace of knowing, okay, God, I don't know what's going to happen here. But you've got this. This could be that this is a turning point in our relationship, and actually you're going to heal our marriage and turn things around. Or this could be that this is a human with a free will making a choice, and there's really nothing. I just have to trust and let go. So it was definitely devastating. I definitely felt the grief and the shame and everything that come with that. I think, especially, as I said, being so idealistic, I just felt like the shame of a failed marriage. How could I face people? How could this happen to me? That, which is probably a bit of pride in there as well, feeling that, but it was real at the time. And having to just lean in on God and completely trust him, to then walk this out from there. That was, and saying that, as you're saying, it's a journey. You go through the different things of grief and anger and all the rest along the way. But I really had felt early on, not react, not, do the normal things that you normally do, but just to, walk a path of peace and to trust God. So that was the beginning of my journey. So.
Right. So when you say walk a path of peace, what does that actually look like?
Yeah,
When
yes.
you've got two little children, you're facing the practical realities of now separate homes, financial pressure, or certainly adjustment. So to unpack for me what walking a path of peace actually looked like.
Sure. Um, Definitely, it just comes down to even the little choices and decisions. So, my husband moved out probably about a week after this all come out, and at the beginning that was temporary, just to see where things are at. He was kind of like, give me 6 weeks or whatever to see where things are at with this. So, but he never returned from there. But it was in those choices of just allowing him, to come into the home to see the kids, to to be gentle in the way I spoke, I guess, not to
Mm.
let my anger come out, or but that proverb that said, gentle answer turns away wrath, really to just see how using that and using the word of God to be the one to take the higher road, I guess, but actually how that brought out the good even in him, and in the situation, that instead of us going up against each other and me just venting my anger and venting my hurt, which you can justify as being deservedly right, but trusting God's way of doing things, and also doing what is best for the kids at the time too. And so it was that path of peace to just keep that relationship, even though it had changed in nature, but to try to keep it healthy as possible. So
I mean, that sounds like you're exercising an incredible amount of patience and gentleness and self-control. To how did you do the internal work to be able to manage the anger and, I would imagine, resentment and frustration and confusion that is still something that you're processing in your own time.
yeah.
What was sort of the practice in your life that helped you be able to actually speak with gentleness?
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, and being completely real, there are moments I'm throwing myself on the bed and crying,
Right.
alone, and having those moments, but and before God, just going, pouring out that grief before God and letting God's presence come around me and letting God's healing come around me. And even saying that, it's funny, like walking that path with God, like I really felt like God had me on such a tight rope, even though I felt like I could be justified to have all these emotions and do all these things. I would get convicted if I stepped out of line. If my husband had come over to see the kids or something and I got a bit irked by something and did something, it's so funny. I'd be the one then feeling that conviction. I'd be like, oh, that is so not fair. He deserves, and but God just kept me on a tight rope, and but truly, yeah, the ability to be able to do that was not my own self. It was
Okay.
really God giving me that ability. It's not my strength, it's not my goodness. It was literally just God giving me that strength to be able to do that, and that was me just throwing myself into God's hands at the time too. That's all I could do, so there was nothing amazing about me. It was literally just God's strength giving, yeah,
So,
helping me.
thinking of when you talk about God giving you strength in and what that actually looks like on a day-to-day basis for someone who's dealing with the very harsh realities that you are, how
Mm.
important and helpful was community, whether that was church community, family, friends? What role did that play in you being able to navigate that journey well?
Yeah, it played a huge role. And church, first and foremost, I think initially I nearly felt the shame of even going, how can I turn up back at church, which of course was so misled, because going back to church, people were so kind and warm and loving and embracing, and that is where we needed to be,
Right.
so those early days, the kids were still so young. I had, a toddler and a baby, and trying to get out that door to church would be so challenging. I was generally always late and flustered, coming in the door. But there was always just beautiful, kind that people there ready to welcome me. And, I always felt better for going to church, no matter how hard it was to get there. The word that was spoken, the worship, I would feel refreshed, strengthened, always go away feeling better. And so glad that I made that choice to do that. And of course, saying that too, God plays gorgeous, godly girlfriends around my life, and who would speak into my life and had beautiful wisdom and counsel as well. And that was so important, to have people joining you in your journey who understood the path I wanted to walk and could
Right.
support me in that. Because you know, in those times, you do get a lot of people with a lot of opinions. So I'll tell you this and that, or you should do this, or you should do that. And it might all sound good and make sense, but it's staying true to what you know God has called you to do, and surrounding yourself with people who will speak into your life and support you and strengthen you in that, and not actually take you away from, you know, what you feel that you're meant to do. So definitely church, community, godly, good friendships, and even the ability. I had, you know, one particular girlfriend that I'm thinking of who was just so fun. She'd go, right, that's it, you know, let's get the kids babysit. We're going to go out. We just go have some fun. And I needed that so much, you know,
Right.
because you'd feel like you're in it's just so full on with single parenting. You're always exhausted, you know. So to have a girlfriend who just go, that's it, I'm taking you out. That was such a blessing in my life to have, people like that around me. So
Oh, that's
community
amazing.
definitely is everything. And I think the temptation is, when these things happen, is to shut down and isolate ourselves. And it's getting past that feeling of, and even it can sometimes be, whether it's, for me probably it was pride, you know, whatever it is that's holding you back, I would encourage people to say, push yourself as hard as it might feel to actually get out amongst people. It's exactly what you need. It's so healing and helpful.
So just thinking of that, it's often it's pride that stops us from asking for help.
Yeah.
How was it? Just desperation that that gave you the shove that you needed to say, hey, actually I need help, I need someone to take me out, I need somebody to give me a break? Because so
Yeah.
how did you actually do that? Because I am imagining that there are people hearing this who agree with the theory of what you're
Yeah.
saying and know they need to do that, but are saying,
Yeah.
I just can't seem to pick up the phone or send the text.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, I'm just too ashamed, or
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't want to be seen as not able to do this myself, to take care
Yeah.
of my children. You know, I think there's that fierce
That's it.
protectiveness that rises up in
Yes.
mums, particularly,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
says that, righto, I'm going to show you that I can do this.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I think it was just, I'm just trying to think back now, actually. Because look, as I said, pride probably was the biggest issue for me, in the sense of just feeling that shame and just not even knowing what to say, you know. And for some instances, I did just push myself to either send that message or do that text, and it was so hard at first, because you feel like it's just, your heart is so raw, you know, and you're putting it out there. But of course, every response you get, you know, or I got anyway, was nothing but love and encouragement and support. And then I did have the flip side where people actually pursued me, you know, where
Uh,
the times where sometimes I was like, I just can't, you know, and that's where I was just so grateful that God had placed those people around my life that put me on their heart. And they're the ones calling me and not letting go. And, you know, sometimes even if I didn't want to talk to anybody, and then eventually getting you and going, come on, you know. So, it was a bit of both in that sense. But as I said, I would encourage anyone in that situation who is struggling to not feel ashamed, to not feel can't do this, or that you're going to be judged. You know, people are so kind and loving, and it's nearly like a lie in your head that you believe that robs you from actually getting the fullness of that community that you need in that time, you know. So
that's a great point. And I'm wondering, for those of us who may be in a circle of support or influence around people who are going through something similar to what you were at that time, what was helpful? What would you say? Because obviously you don't want to have people around in your ear that are saying, oh, you know, this is awful and he's a
Yeah,
deadbeat,
that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's
but
it.
we
Yeah.
we do need to have the right sort of support. So if we're wanting to help someone who's navigating single parenthood, the
Mm.
grief of the loss of a relationship, what would you say are some things that were helpful for you?
Yeah, for sure. I would say if you're, you know, helping and encouraging someone in a situation to first of all listen
Mm,
and really listen to where they're at and where their heart is at. Because I know, and it's very natural for people when they love and care for you, they're
mm,
defensive of you and they want to see the right thing done and, you know, they want to just see justice and things
mm,
like that. So in their heart motive, they can be really right. But what
mm,
they're saying may not line up with what you know God has called you to do, you
mm,
know. So for some, I would say if you're helping someone or wanting to encourage someone, really listen to their heart first of where they're at and
mm,
just get on the right page and encourage them, and not just give your own opinion, because there so
mm,
many opinions come at you in that time of what you should do. So and
mm,
obviously if there's someone that, you know, you feel is in a really dire situation, you know, like it, that does need good counsel, that, you know, where they're at isn't right, then of course, you know, but it's just having that godly wisdom to speak into that, coming out
mm,
of the right spirit, not just opinion in itself, you know. So
mm,
yeah,
mm.
so to have that
Yeah,
sensitivity, I would say, yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
great advice. I think listen
yeah,
is often
yeah,
just the best first response to everything, and
absolutely, absolutely.
and to pause before we speak, which doesn't mean that we can't do something quite practical, like maybe drop off a card or
Yeah,
a plant or some groceries or movie tickets
yes,
or an offer of babysitting. Um,
exactly, all those
all
things,
of those
absolutely.
things don't
Yeah,
require you to have a solution,
that's right,
but
exactly.
they could perhaps buy a little bit of time for
Yes,
whoever is going through the difficult situation to actually get a bit of breathing space.
absolutely,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I know that with things that you've already mentioned, but also having read your story, that forgiveness has been a core theme that's run
Mm,
throughout. Well, I would imagine it's something that's an ongoing journey when you continue to be in relationship with someone who will be part of your life and your
mm,
children's life forever.
yeah.
So, can you tell me how you got that understanding that forgiveness was actually really the hinge point for getting a wholeness back into that relationship, and then what that actually looks like
Yeah,
for you?
sure. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, you know, growing up as a Christian and loving God, like forgiveness is obviously a concept that it wasn't foreign to me in that sense, but I guess I hadn't been challenged in this way to actually have to implement it in my own life on this level, you know. So, but
Mm,
I knew again right from the get-go that it's something I'd have to do, you know,
mm,
because I think the main thing was to get back to a point of wholeness. That can't happen without
mm,
you forgiving, you know. So, and for me, I didn't want to live as a broken person. I didn't want this to
mm,
be my identity. I didn't want this to be, oh, well, this is just what happened to her. And, you know, I'm like, okay, God, this has happened to me. It's not what I imagined was going to happen to me, but I know
mm.
you still have a plan for my life.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to that point of wholeness, and knowing that that is literally at the foundation of
Mm.
it is to forgive. And so, as you said, it's not a one-off event, you know. You go, forgive and I'm done now. It is
Yeah.
a constant process of, you know, so early on, I really, you know, started just to continue forgiving my husband, time for what, you know, that betrayal, of trust and the betrayal of what had happened. And
Mm,
look, it really is amazing. Forgiveness, as we know, it's not what it really does for the other person. It is all about what it does for your own heart. And it
mm,
really does release things. And as I went on that journey more and more, you know, I would just feel God just taking me out of that pit where I was, you know. And the more I just kept walking with God and forgiving where I needed to and moving forward, I just felt, just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And just that healing was taking place in me and that wholeness, you know. So, and it got to the point literally with my ex-husband where it's like, I literally just got to that point of wholeness where, you know, we could actually just have a great relationship. We could talk, laugh together. There was, it was
Wow.
like it was dead. There was nothing there. There would be no pain.
Wow.
There was no feeling of like you know, did this to me, or that there was, or any, just, it was just like completely dead in that sense, but alive in the sense of that I can still care for
Free.
him as the father of my children. We can
Mm.
still have a healthy, amicable relationship that's about our kids.
Mm.
And it freed me up, like that forgiveness, what that did in my heart freed me up to be able to do that. And which still continues today, you know, and it's such a blessing. And of course, as we said, as you journey with things and kids, there's things that come up and you have to, you know, and but it's always going back to that place of letting go, forgiving, moving forward, you know, and not staying there in that place. So
So, what role did prayer play in that forgiveness journey? Because I feel, I guess for me to be the other side of the conversation here, I'm
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
of myself and
yeah,
I'm like, I'd be forgiving through gritted teeth
yeah,
and
yes,
my brain would be forgiving, but my heart would be
yeah,
hanging on.
yes,
And so, again, how do we navigate the space between what we know is the right thing to do
yeah.
and actually get that wholeness that you talk about?
Yes, exactly. And look, I think one of the biggest tools for me is actually praying for my ex-husband and his new partner and blessing them. And, you know, when the Bible talks about blessing those who have hurt you, and that was such a tool for me that I would actually start praying for them and blessing them. And it's amazing, the more you do that, that's where that connection is made, where all of a sudden it's so hard to actually hold a grudge against someone you're praying for and blessing. It's like
Wow.
God literally changes your heart. And yes, and at times it was through gritted teeth. I remember, you know, in the early years when my kids were so young, and they were off overseas doing a trip around Europe, and I mean
Oh,
the
no.
kids were sick with gastro, and you know, and you feel like, oh, this is so unfair, you know, but you have to just keep praying and blessing. And it really is amazing. And it's just a principle of God, you know, that he knows what he's talking about, obviously, in his word when he says to do this, because it really aligns your heart and puts it in the right place. And it just keeps your heart on track when you are praying for someone who has hurt you and done the wrong thing by you. It literally shifts everything. And it's just a godly principle. I bet I can attest that it really does work, you know, and it
Wow.
really did keep my heart on track being able to do that. And the more I did it, I mean, you know, even if you start doing it feeling like I don't even really, you know, it's actually the more I meant it, I actually believed it and felt it and go, I actually do want to see them blessed. I actually do want to see them prosper. I do want to see them,
Wow.
you know, God's hand on their life, and to even to turn their lives around, that they'd find God and know God. And, you know, it's amazing how prayer does that for your heart, you know. So I would encourage people in that place. It may be tough at first, but give it a shot, you know, and keep doing it and see what God does.
So again, me being the really practical person, I'm like, so how long did you have to do that for? Because in real
Yeah,
terms, I'm
yeah,
imagining that it's taking a lot to be able to pray one prayer
yeah,
for someone that you want to really punch in the face.
yeah, yeah,
And then and you feel like, okay, I should get credit for that.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
But I'm imagining that this has been a long ongoing
Definitely.
journey. So,
Yeah.
I mean, not that there's a formula per se, but I guess to encourage people like me who would be thinking, oh, when am I going to feel like this is working? Practically speaking, you know, can you give me an insight into what it was like in those early years
Yeah,
with,
yes. Well, definitely a journey, you know, and you can think you're going along so well, and then something will pop up, and it's like, you feel that hurt in your heart again, you know. So, um, you know, I started that early on, and it's in just praying and blessing. And I remember, so my ex-husband and his partner ended up having a baby, and took the kids down, my boys down to meet their little sister. And, you know, and it was so funny because my ex-husband and his partner at the time weren't walking with God. My husband had obviously walked away from God. His new partner was not a Christian. And it was Easter, and somehow, I'd said, with the boys, and I said, actually, so a local church around here, I was staying at a hotel, and they said, oh, look, we'll come along with you, and which was
Wow.
actually quite amazing. But and I ended up driving to church with my ex-husband's partner and the baby in the car, and just sitting there going, God, this is so surreal and so
Wow.
weird that I'm in this situation. And on
Wow.
one hand, it feels tough, like as in, oh, and another hand, it's like, this is crazy that you've
Mm.
done all this, and and they come along to church, and all I was doing was actually praying, going, please God, just speak to them. And but here we are all sitting in a row. It was just bizarre. But look, the truth is, after that, then it was like the emotion of all that really hit me, of just
Mm.
how full on that was. And just I had to just go back and go, God, keep my heart right, keep my heart right, just keep me on that path to
Mm.
be able to, because it can at times, when you're facing different things, you're wanting to do the right thing, but you can still feel drained by things. You can still feel
Mm.
emotionally depleted by things, but
Mm.
it's just getting back into that space with God, and then he restores. And it was fine, and it was really good, and I saw great things come out of that. But
Wow.
sometimes you're put in positions where you're going, okay, God, this is a little full on.
So I'm conscious of time, but I want to
That's
ask,
so good.
how do you process that? So is for you, are you writing things down? Are you sharing with a friend? Is it just you speaking to God in your head? What is that? Because I think one of the things that's become very obvious as we've chatted is that you
Mm,
are involving God in every inhale and exhale of this new way of living,
mm,
with your former husband, father of your kids, additional people coming into that family environment with new partners and
yeah,
children.
yeah.
So how are you doing that? Are you a journaler? Are you an external processor?
Yeah, look, at the time, not so much a journaler. I wish I had journaled more actually now, because then but it definitely was. I am a talker. I am a
Okay,
get with your girlfriends and just talk it all out. And, that's probably
right.
my outlet for sure. And process it that way. Saying that too, I mean, my parents even, I mean, they're such beautiful people. I had people praying for me constantly too, and so even having people in my life, such as my parents and other people who, right through everything, they're, you're not only making choices for yourself, you've got
Mm,
people praying for you to give, to give you that strength, and to keep you on that path, and that God would supply all your needs, so
mm,
having, talking things out, and I'd obviously talk things out with my friends and with my parents and things too, and having people also praying for you,
mm.
just, I think, even that accountability of keeping things on track as well. So but yes, definitely, as I said, I wish I'd journaled more. I wish I'd had those, but I'm just, let's just get it all out, and I move on very quickly from things once I've actually expressed what I feel about something, and say, okay, we're good now, okay,
Yeah,
move on,
me too.
so
Me too.
yeah, good.
Which can make it challenging for other people who are deep processors,
Yes,
because
yeah,
I don't know about you, but I've moved on. I'm on to a
yeah,
totally different thought.
that's it.
And they're still like, but hang on, I
Yeah,
thought we were still talking about that.
that's it, exactly. No, I'm the
Well,
same. So
we're almost at the end of our
yeah.
time, although I feel like there's so much more I want to ask you. But I do want to sort of finish with a
Mm,
question about how you got the confidence to learn to trust someone else, because you are now married to an amazing man. You've just celebrated your sixth wedding anniversary
yes, we have,
with a
yes.
lovely romantic weekend getaway
It
that I
was very
saw.
lovely.
Looked amazing. So I imagine that in itself was quite a big step, to feel that you were ready and available in your heart
Mm,
to include another person in your life and in the life of your children.
yeah,
How did you get there?
yes. No, that was definitely a process. Look, when my marriage first ended, I literally gave myself in my head, 3 years, thinking, okay, God, 3 years just to get whole, to get things sorted. I was 31 at the time, thinking that's a good time, and then I'll be ready to, just get remarried and move on with my life. And it was definitely important to me to allow time, though, to become whole, because I knew if I went into a relationship not being whole, that's obviously I'm not going to be able to give the best of myself in another relationship, and I don't want another failed marriage. And also, I may not actually, I may take, or accept less than what is right if I'm not in a whole position as well. So it was very important for me to make that a priority, to just give God that time. I didn't expect it to be 10 years. God took me on that path. But I can honestly say, and without sounding too cliche or anything, but God really did become my husband in that time, and a father to my children. And we were such a tight little bunch, so it was actually, so around the 8-year mark that I met my now husband, and had a definite sense that I think this is, there's something here and God may be in there. So I had purposely actually not dated up until this point.
Wow.
So I hadn't put myself out there. I had not wanted to date. I thought, God, if this is going to happen again, and this is just my story, I'm not saying this is everyone's story, but for me, if this is going to happen, you're going to have to orchestrate this. So when I met my now husband, it definitely was a journey. We actually just became friends for 2 years. We just became the best of friends, hung out together. Our kids got to hang out together. He was a single dad as well. And, at the time I was thinking, because I had a sense like, I know he's the guy. Let's just get this happening. Come on, God. All right, we're ready to go. He wasn't in that place. He needed that time. But, and I see God's wisdom in that, because we both needed that couple of years for God to do his work in us, in our kids, our family, to really prepare, because it is tough. You think you're at a point of wholeness, and then you get into a vulnerable position, and then you realize, oh, okay, there's still issues and there's still challenges and things where you have to trust and open up your heart. So look, God has been amazing with this journey of doing that. It certainly hasn't been a walk in the park. And second marriages, blended families, it's full on, and it's definitely challenging. And we've definitely, over the last 6 years, we've had some tough times, but we've also had some amazing times. We know God is with us, and it's that commitment to keep walking it out and trusting God. And I think coming into a second marriage, you don't come with a blank canvas. You're coming with, both of you, with so many different things, and it's just allowing God to work through all that in you. And with the kids and all the rest, I mean, there's so many different dynamics, but I wouldn't change anything for the world, So it is such a blessing. I'm so glad I had that 10 years. Now I look back, and I'm like, God, thank you for that time, because it was actually such a special time. Even though through it, I'm thinking, okay, God, when are you going to bring? I knew that God had someone for me and the boys, when is he going to come along? And you can get a bit impatient, but I'm so glad. God, in all his wisdom, he knows the right timing. And I'd encourage anyone in that position to trust God with that, to trust God's timing. And he knows what's best. He's got the best for you. So just allow God to be your husband in between. Allow him to be the father to your kids, because, look, I can testify in that time when I was on my own as a single mom of just so much favor, just God's goodness, just incredible things that, like you just felt cared for. You'd just be like, God, I know that was you. Something would happen, and just beautiful little moments of favor throughout our lives and on the kids' lives. And God will never let you down in that sense. If you're trusting God, if you're throwing yourself into God's hands, going, God, I need you, be my husband, be my father in this time, and father to my kids, he will actually just, honestly, you can trust him to look after you above and beyond. And I can honestly testify of that, so, and my kids now, my boys are now 19 and 17. They're gorgeous young men. And I'm so proud of them. They've been through a lot in their lives. But one thing that I knew that, God had really promised, that we're not going to wear the story on our, it's not like you can see, oh yeah, they're
Wow.
kids that have been brought up in a single home and they've got these. It's like, our struggle didn't become our identity, and
Wow.
God took that and he changed our identity and to be one of blessing and goodness. And so incredibly grateful for that. So,
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Jules. That's a beautiful and encouraging note to finish our conversation on. But I guess just to for people that are listening,
yeah,
um, to just encourage them that a couple of the points that you've shared is the right sort of community around you,
yeah,
the lean on God in everything and allow
mm-hmm.
Him to be the loudest voice that you follow,
Yes,
and to find the path of forgiveness, even
yes,
though it may
definitely.
be full of obstacles at
Absolutely,
times.
that's it. Yeah.
But
Just to keep your heart right. That's it. Yeah.
I think that the insights that you've shared in the context of your specific situation are so relevant and powerful to a whole range of circumstances
Yeah. Yeah.
that are challenging. And so I really appreciate you being so vulnerable
Oh,
and
thank you.
articulate in what has been, I know, a very challenging journey at times. I would love, no pressure, but at some point I would love us to be able to chat again, and maybe you could speak
Sure.
about life after.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
sort of got to the point of where you've learned to trust again and fallen in
That's
love
it.
again, and
Yes.
then I
Yes.
know there's a whole other chapter beyond that.
There absolutely is.
And as a mother of children similar age to your boys, I know that just under sort of average circumstances, that's challenging. So, so then
Yep.
weaving
That's
in the
it.
dynamic of blended families
Yeah.
and all that involves, I know that you'd have some great wisdom to share. So maybe down the track we could chat about that. What do you
Absolutely. I'll
think?
be so happy to chat again. I've loved it. Thank
Yay!
you so much for talking and having me on today. It's been so
Oh,
great. It really has.
oh,
So
I'm excited we got to actually see each other's faces in real time.
exactly. It's wonderful. So
And when
thank you
they
so much, Linda.
open, oh, my pleasure. When they open the borders, I will be heading up to Queensland.
Well, love to
Definitely.
have a coffee. Love to have a coffee. We'll book it
Would
in.
love
That's
that.
it.
Thank
And can
you.
I
And
just say
thanks,
quickly,
everyone. Yes,
oh yeah, sorry,
go
quickly
ahead.
too. I just want to say congratulations on the book too. It's an absolutely beautiful book, and
Oh, thank
so
you.
well done in putting all those beautiful stories together. So, and as I said,
Oh,
privileged
thank
to be
you.
part of it, but well done to you for being able
Well,
to put those stories out there. So,
thank you. And volume 3, maybe we'll get another story from you.
just maybe.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
Linda.
day. Bye, Jules.
Bye. Bye.
Good morning, everyone.